Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Invincible Innovation podcast, the podcast for changemakers, innovators shaping the future of our world. I'm your host, Mazor Kario, product design and AI expert, and today we are diving into a topic that's on the mind of many product managers and entrepreneurs: how to add AI capabilities to your product. Joining us today is a very special guest and a very smart guy, an AI development expert. We'll be discussing the benefits, challenges, and practical steps involving in integrating AI into your product. So buckle up and get ready for some actionable insight. And Yoni, hi Yoni.
Hey,
So
hello.
happy to see you, Yoni Levin, AI Tech Lead at Monday. And I know Yoni for many years through the GDE, Google Developer Expert and Mentors. And I consider him as a friend and a very smart guy to talk to. So we're in a very good start here. So thank you for joining me today, Yoni.
Thank you for inviting. It's my pleasure and my honor to be here with you.
I'm sure it's going to be really interesting. And we just started talking, and I know we have lots of things to cover. We're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and you're all invited to join the discussion and ask questions. And we're starting for a very easy question. What are the key benefits of adding AI capabilities to your product?
I think first of all, you need to understand like what is AI. So there is like all kind of different directions, and when I'm like, so I'm considering to build a startup, right? And when I'm looking on AI, there is a lot of, let's say, big wave of building AI startups, right? So like AI therapists, AI coach, AI musicians, etc., etc. This is one thing. But when I'm thinking about AI, for me, it's mainly as a tool. I call it its enabler. So when you thinking about something that will take you, like when we were considering to build one of the products, it's you say to yourself like, oh, it's going to take me like 1 year of work, three teams full time. But now with the AI, it's become like people, maybe 2 weeks of work. So AI become an enabler. So when we're speaking about the product, it's basically a lot of things that become very easy to build, to integrate within a line using AI. So I
Yeah.
would say like the main point for me with this AI that it's just become a neighbor, and so many things that now it's much easier to build, and you don't need full scale R&D team that will work on it.
Yeah, I understand the point of view of the tech lead saying like things that would have cost or taken so much time and efforts and resources from our team now is so much easier and takes so much less time.
Yeah, but both, by the way, also from perspective product, right? So like one of the things we're building in monday.com is kind of like insights from your project, right? And monday.com is like it's basically you can manage your project within monday.com in 1,000 different ways, right? It's like Lego. You build for yourself the board, connect integrations, automation, etc., etc. So from the product point of view, to cover all these use cases, all possible variations of how the board is built is insane, right? It's like huge amount of work. But now with the AI, which is like this is the main point of the AI, is to take unstructured data, so basically something that you don't know exactly how built, and get an insights from like to turn unstructured data to the structured data. This is the main capability of the AI. This is the main point of why using the AI.
Yeah. So how can a product manager assess if their product is a good fit for AI integration?
Oh, good question. Um, I think the first thing you need to ask yourself, why do I need AI here?
That's a good question.
Yeah, like because the main challenge with AI is that it's like very easy to build a demo. It's very easy to take it to the 80% of the accuracy. But then to take it from the 80 to 100, actually you can't even make it 100, right? Because the AI is it's
It's
always
changing all the time.
yeah.
Yeah.
So to take it to the very high level of accuracy will take you 3-4 times more than it took from 0 to 80%. So the challenge is that first to understand, do I really need it? And if I can build it without using an AI. And the second thing is that is to understand is that there's not only about the showing the solution, because AI is so unpredictable with its answers, right? So it's not deterministic. For the same input, it can get you two different answers for each run, right? So there's a lot of around building a trust with the AI, building the confidence from the users, also from the user perspective. Like we just before when we spoke, I shared with you about human AI, right? The new
Yeah.
part. So for one, it's for one user, you're going to see it, they say, "Oh, it's amazing! It's like mind blowing what is happening in the environment," right? For another one, it's "Oh, it's scary, right? It's
Right.
scary. It's creepy. I don't know what's happening, etc., etc." So when you're a product and you're thinking about AI, you need to take this in account. How you build the trust with the user, how you don't scare it out from your product, how you build the trust, right? And then how you build it accuracy, right? So how you ensure that your model, your feature that you integrated your model in is behaving as you predicted it to behave, right? So
Yeah.
it's become like very a lot of things about infrastructure, about evaluating things that non-deterministic, and then it's open huge world of possibilities and things you
Yeah.
need to take care of. Yeah,
Yeah. And what you mentioned is that you need to, in order to build this trust, you need to build all these guardrails and restrictions. What is not an acceptable answer, because everything could be a question actually, and what would be a good answer is something that you don't always know how to predict.
right, right. And you don't know how your user is going to use your product, right?
Yeah.
Both, by the way, from from the security point of view, right?
Right.
Maybe you're building some something that you're not aware is actually breaching the confidentiality, breaching, I don't know, data security, leaking sensitive information. It's like there's a lot of things you need to think. And from one point of view, it's actually like, not to not to scare people, not to
Right.
to be to offend someone that they're using or actually harming
Yeah.
them.
And another thing that comes to my mind is the cost. When you're thinking how many users would use it, when it's small numbers, fine. But if it will catch up and most of your users will use it, it could be very expensive.
Yeah, actually, it's a very good point. Like we so when we started to play with it, yeah, like you're building the demo, nice, playing cool, but then you realize that today's providers, so like if you're using AI, LLM, right? When speaking about AI, we're talking about generative AI, right? So when
Yeah.
you're using LLMs, probably you're going to use it with some provider like AWS or Google or Azure, and or like any other like Claude and OpenAI directly. But then you realize that actually their quota for amount like for your querying the LLM is very small. So when he's talking about like companies like Monday, where we have like hundreds of thousands, millions of users, it's become an issue, like how I can scale my solution. So for example, we mentioned about this project insights, right? So your insights on your project, it's multiple prompts, multiple models working together towards the answer, like what's the insights of my project, like what's the
Right.
bottlenecks, dependencies, etc. And then you realize that nobody today, like no providers, and let's call it I call it AIS, like AI is a structure, infrastructure. They don't have enough quota, they don't have enough resources. So there's endless battle for GPUs for the resources. So you as a company need to clarify think like, oh, how can ensure that I'm not running out of the juice for
Yeah.
using LLMs and actually provide and one of the challenges that we had, like we launch automations, AI automations. So like in Monday, you can make things working automatically. So for example, when you change status to done, then generate email and send it to the someone that in assign column, for example. Um, and then this is the recurring automation that can run. So basically, you can, if you have a board, like if you're a big enterprise company, you have a board with 1,000 items or tens of thousands items, and you can run this automation on the whole board, right? Uh, then it's a huge amount of calls to LLM, huge amount of tokens that are used. So
Right.
it's like very simple use case, running AI automation, but huge scale and how you ensure that, right? So we started to build like multi-providers infrastructure because we understand there's a different models, different providers, each one of the different resources, and we need to build like some kind of like router between them, also load balancer between them to ensure that our availability for our features.
Yeah. Another thing that comes to my mind, if you're talking about cost, is the price of your service. So the cost of this feature needs to be covered by how much people are willing to pay for it, of course.
Right, right. But by the way, today it's kind of like real challenge, I think, for the most of the companies is how you pricing those things, right? So like,
Right.
for example, Notion, they started off like they are giving you a free trial of like they integrate their first solution was like to summarize to help me write things like inside Notion or generate text. Um, so they started like they give you like 3 or 4 tries for free, and then you ask them like, oh, let's pay us $20. But then actually the question is like, does this $20 really cover all my usage, right? So if you only have a usage or I'm exploiter, probably you just give me the backdoor. If you Monday, right? So how I price, like what I'm pricing in based on number of automations you're running or based on the insights that I found. Like then you want to try to connect value to the price, right? So we don't want to charge like some plain number, like plain amount of money, like plain number. You want to connect it to the value that user receives, right? So then you need to figure out, okay, so maybe some features will be priced differently than another. And
Yeah.
from my opinion, for what I see, at least in the, from big enterprises, nobody really right now is know how to price it, but everyone is paying for that. Everyone is paying a huge amount of money because like it's very expensive, right? So if you do your math, you will find yourself. So when we explore the opportunity of switching providers or different contracts, we find ourselves that we need to pay around $2 million just for having access to just to step up to our scale, not necessarily converted to the usage. And it's huge amount of money. Like you
Right.
don't want to commit before you actually saw the value using AI.
Of course. And I think another thing that comes to my mind is usually when you price something is, as you mentioned, like Notion, it's per license. And you're paying for tokens or for usage of output input. And it could be very different from a one-time fee as a license. It means that you don't know how much would they use it, how long would be the actions, answers, and questions. Meaning that I know that right now in GitHub there are many cases that Microsoft are losing money because the license is I think 20 or 30 something like that, and there are people using it for 70 and 80 for a month, and they're losing in some cases.
Yeah, for sure. Microsoft
Yeah.
with the Copilot, right? So it's like um, they're using the same model as OpenAI, right? ChatGPT, but Copilot is actually for free, right? So they literally using for money because everyone is trying to penetrate the market in some sort of way, right? And ChatGPT is an amazing product and one of the like I think it's the fastest to reach 100 million users. It's over 1 billion revenue compared to no revenue at all just a year ago, maybe a little bit more. Um, and everyone is trying to replicate it. Everyone trying to be there and get the users and to acquire them, etc., etc. So I think now most of the companies don't care about the cost itself. So they more focusing on acquiring users to understand use cases. Both, by the way, us as well. So like for sure we don't want to be on extreme numbers, but we're not concerned about the cost itself, but rather than to find the the sticky point with our solution with AI and how it's working inside monday.com. So this is like our main focus. And once we will get to the let's say product market fit with all the features that we're building, then we will come to the point where let's think about how we improve our metrics, how we reduce our cost, our resource usage, etc., etc. I think most of the companies, same as Monday, both providers, both users of their providers, like companies ours, are thinking about building AI, integrating in a way that users start stick with it, use it on a daily basis, and you see clear value. Because
Yeah.
most of the companies still on like exploring and experimenting phase.
Yeah, nobody really knows what's the best use case. I think that many of the people, when they're thinking about generative AI, they're thinking about this very smart chat that you would just add and people would ask questions, which is very basic. But there is so much more that you could do with that. But it's like, for me, when we're thinking about what we're doing in the user experience part, it's like we're in the DOS age before the Windows. We just have this, this chat, but it's
Yeah,
so much more, but we're just starting.
yeah. By the way, we find out that most of the users, so like chat is nice, but there is a people become very tired from chats.
Of course, they need to
Uh,
text all the time. They need to write. They
yeah,
don't like it.
yeah, and also a lot of people are like our Monday users. They are not tech oriented. So like all things regarding prompt engineering, etc., etc. It's most of the people are just confused, don't know how. So we found that the most convenient way is just to package it with some certain prompt and give the user as already packaged product. So when you're speaking about AI automation, one way is to give you like open block where you can write prompt and then you make it to execute all the time. And for some powerful users, like very mature, tech-oriented, maybe fine. But for the most of the users, it's like they don't get it. They need something like pre-built package. So we start to package these blocks in predefined behavior. Like for example, we build a classification block. So it's getting the text and then it classify it with some certain label. So basically we connected two columns, like text column and label column. And then, for example, you can use it as you have integration with your Shopify. So you have like user review. So we can run this automation that classify the review if it's like bad, good, mixed, neutral, or feature request or bug reporting, etc., and then do other stuff. Right. So with like
Yeah.
prepackaged behavior, and it's something that user gets. And then you see adoption of that, and accounts start to try and use it more than just a
Yeah.
bottom block when people
Yeah,
become
and
scared.
it really makes sense. It's a great example of the fact that people don't want to think what needs to be asked. You know what
Yeah,
they're looking for, you know your users, you know what they want. So you're packaging it, and they don't really care if AI or another automation gave them the answer. They just want to get what is important for them, and they want to know what's going on with the testimonials for their store. That's it. That's what's interesting for them. So, what are the first steps to take when considering adding AI into your product?
uh, I think first thing is to understand where's the limitations, right? So not necessarily need to run into the building infrastructure, building integrations, and see how it goes. You can try to play with yourself with a plain chat GPT. Like you think, like most of the products today is you can achieve a lot with just prompt engineering, right? So you can open ChatGPT or any other like Claude or Gemini, and then try to play with that. And you can put, like, for example, you try to understand like insights from the board. So you can just take data from Monday board, convert it to JSON, and put it in the plain prompt, and then see how it goes, and then play with it and see which results you can get at it. So don't need to build anything. You can just play and see how far it can take you. And then on that, you can estimate, okay, I understand less or more what it's capable for, and then you need to think, okay, so what's the best packaging for my user to get this functionality inside, right? So we spoke about the user interface, like maybe chat is not the best way, maybe not to give him a proper prompt engineering, etc. Maybe you need to package some way, but on the side, you need to build the trust. So users need to be aware of what's happening and why it's happened, right? Especially when you have this information, like why this worked in this way, like why he gave this label, it classified this into this label. User want to be aware of why this made a decision. By the way, it's a very crucial point. Full transparency. So when you think of taking the stuff, you need to understand this should be part of your experience, of user experience, and translate it to the actual UI. To give an option user to play, to see how different, we saw one of the things, I think Yonatan built it really right. It says something similar to our automation, and what they did is actually they allow you to play, like they built some small playground, so you can set which columns to use as an input, and then to see how the output before you apply it to your flow in the system.
And you think they should try, how does it work in cloud? How does it open in OpenAI? How does you try different providers? Do you think they should try open source models and all of that too? Or you would start with the easy part?
I would say open source today is, we know that all the models are great, but they're behind main big models like GPT, Gemini, Claude. Right today, Claude 3 is one of the brightest and the shiniest models. But
I think
less or more.
Amazon just purchased it. No.
What?
I think that Amazon purchased Anthropic, which is Claude. That's what I think.
Amazon did the same deal as Microsoft did with an OpenAI. So
Yeah.
they're invested in them, and part of the investment is to use this infrastructure.
I thought that they bought, but nobody really understands what's going on between OpenAI and Microsoft, and Elon Musk will tell you that it's not what he meant in any case.
Yeah, it's actually interesting, what's happening with OpenAI. But definitely, I would start with playing with the best models out there, because when it's not question about the models itself, right? So it's more question about how fast you can ship it to production. Because once you have this stickiness, the users are using your product and they'll love it, and then you will think about, how can improve it, how can reduce the cost, etc., etc. Because all open source models, they're most of the open source models, usually they're smaller, they're using much less parameters, and the quality there is less good. And also all these models, there are a lot of models that are specific in one thing, right? By the way, maybe you can consider even using these small language models like BERT, for example, for specific tasks, that you have something very specific and don't need to break. What's the difference between a large language models and small language models? Is number of the parameters, right? Large language models, they're amazing, right? They're very general one. They can do a lot of things. They're capable of so many stuff. But this is also the pitfall, because to run them, it's very resource expensive, right? It takes time. You need to pay for that. And having small model, it's faster, it's cheaper. I think there's even models that can run on CPU or not GPU, which is also mind blowing, right? So
yeah.
So yeah, I think the first step you need to play with the Gemini, with a Claude, with whatever big models out there, easy thing to you, and then once you get the results, once you understand the limitation, once you understand what is capable, what is not capable, start to build it inside the product.
So what you're saying, because you're considering time to market, and it's much easier to do it with these very large models, and easier with prompt engineering before like
Yeah,
going into tuning, fine tuning the models, so forth. It's like the easiest path to understand from your client if they want it or not, and how are they using it, and what is the benefits, and how do they see it.
exactly. I think it's a classic, startup thing that you first ship, you try to get this product market fit, and once you get it, then everything will fall to this part. Like it's much easier to make a decision because you understand the value, right? And
Right.
you can. And by the way, you also will have much more data to play with different models, right? Because you know already what is working, like what is working, what is not. You have much more data, you have much more insights, and then it will be easy to you to to improve your solution, to improve the offering to the user, rather than blindly trying to to ship everything in one piece and lean
Yeah.
startup.
Yeah, what you're saying, if I understand correctly, is that you start meeting your clients, you get their inputs, and you see what is really interesting for them. And if it's something very specific, once you know that, you could consider taking a smaller model and just answering this specific question, and that's it.
Exactly. Yeah. So
It
for
really
example,
makes
if we're talking about back about the classification automation, right, the one that classifies text in a certain label, this is can be easily converted to using, instead of today we're using GPT 3.5, we can convert it to the classic BERT classification model, and there's plenty of them, right? And reduce the cost, reduce the throughput, like all of that
yeah, the performance, of course, if it's like more.
performance. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are some technical challenges involved in AI integration, and how can people overcome them?
Oh, technical challenges. I think one of the points that really concern me till today, I'm not sure I'm have an answer for that, is so what's happened with the LLMs is that before that, to run model, it was like plainly you need to have data science, you know how to deploy, and using Python, Notebook, Jupyter, and it was pure data science world. And within a night, with all this API, with all this AIs and infrastructure, it's become available for any developer, right? So you get API to call with the prompt, some configuration, and you get answer back. So you don't need to take care of it all this data science infrastructure that you need to build, the deployment, and etc. etc. It's become available. But from one side, it's become available to all software engineers, and all software engineers not necessarily using Python. By fact, most of the engineers using TypeScript, JavaScript, right? It's the number one language on the Stack Overflow. But all tools around data analysis, around predictions, around like all this world of working in the LLM still somehow remain in the Python world, right? So if you want to build some certain like evaluation framework for your LLM, for what you build, it's very you have much more tools to do that in Python rather than in a TypeScript. So one thing for challenges is language based, like which framework to use. So I'm software engineer, full stack engineer. I'm writing just in JavaScript, TypeScript. I'm not writing Python. So what I do, what now I'm learning Python. By the way, for Monday, it was one of the challenges that all our engineers, they're full stack engineers. We are very proficient in TypeScript. All our microservices in TypeScript. We have all this infrastructure and know how to deploy Node.js services. Now, what we need to deploy Python microservice, will we, will not, how we interact with that. Not many developers feel professional with that. We don't have our internal libraries that we're using. So it's become a challenge. We solve it for now that we basically divide it like, so we put like experiment environment where we can play with the models in Python, but production environment is written in JavaScript. So when time comes and we feel comfortable with what we experiment, we deploying it to JavaScript environment. It's integrating, like, so we still our code of using LLMs is the JavaScript, but experiment environment consuming this microservice through API. So from one side, to give our data science team to play with a production code, but production code is still written in the JavaScript. So this
Yeah.
is how we solve for now. And it's a real challenge because, like you say, oh, I want to use library for the prompt engineering, and it's written in Python. Right. Also, by the way, LangChain, which is one of the most popular libraries in this LLM world, it's amazing Python version and very creepy, outdated JavaScript version.
Yeah.
And we did JavaScript version, but what we do, we build it myself, we pull requests, like, a huge amount
Yeah.
of questions.
You know what comes to my mind? Another thing that I did not mention, that Yoni is an entrepreneur. He came to Monday after he was a full time working in his own startup. For me, the main thing that comes to my mind is you could have so many startups fixing this gap that is needed for so many companies that they want to use these tools, and they're not interested in going into this to the Python world. So just think about it next time. Your
Yeah,
next initiative.
I think if we're touching about startup world, I think there are so many opportunities right now for in all kind of directions, all kind of layers of using AI, right? So from the infrastructure lowest level, like new models, new services, new resources, to the to this all tooling, like, so how you use AI, how you use LLM, how you deploy them, how you evaluate them, so all this tooling level. um, and then there's the level of usage, right? So like basically resource consumption, resource utilization, and all this stuff. And then there's a layer of AI implementation, right? So like how we use it in the company, right? So huge amount of opportunities. It's crazy. Like
Yeah.
I'm every time I'm feeling I have a goosebumps of really. I think this is that it's like for me it's remind. Um, it's like in the golden age, like where everyone was seeking for a gold, and like it's a
Yeah.
crazy. It's
Yeah.
it's
Gold
like
rush.
first days. Yeah, gold rush. It's like first days of the internet, where amount of services, amount of things you can build is a crazy. It's
Yeah.
challenging so much from what we know today.
Yeah. And now all the managers in Monday.com starting to be worried that Yoni has ideas. Okay. What advice would you give product managers who are hesitant about adding AI to their product?
Um, I would let's say to it's not necessarily about the product managers. It's every person in the world that building something with AI or thinking about doing something or having something in AI, like from the developers, managers, product managers, sales, like anyone that or neglect it or afraid of it or don't use it or don't know or don't educate itself. The future is coming. You want it or not, but it's
Yeah.
happening. It's happening right now. And the thing is, like, it's this is that if either you adopt it and you part of this revolution, you're part of the movement that's happening, you educate yourself, you find usage of it, you understand how to use it on the daily basis, you experiment, find new ways of how you can build it in your daily life. It doesn't matter if it's in a product, in your sales pitch, in like whatever, or you just not exist in few years from now.
Yeah.
You're
I
will be
agree
up.
with that.
And this is how I see it. Like it's the revolution, and like look on the pace of things happening. It's so fast. Like I'm reading a lot. Like I'm every day I have like few hours when I just read articles, and I'm behind, and I'm behind of everything that's
Right.
happening, and like the amount of changes that are happening, it's crazy.
Right. It's really
And
fast.
you need to like really understand that okay, what I know today is not relevant. I need to educate myself, learn it, adapt it, try it, and like you reinvent what's the next is coming for you for your dream of I don't know if you sales managers or how like doing the sales, I don't know, customer support, like whatever you're doing today is going to change. And it's a question if you are part of the change or you left behind.
Right. I told you, I think, in our last discussion that I built a course, to teach executives how to understand generative AI, how to incorporate that into their products, how to just
Yeah,
understand. In the last year, I read so much, and I always felt that I'm behind. I sent myself so many links to listen and to read, and I'm behind because it's so fast, and it's hard to understand the essence of things because it's moving so fast. You can find yourself hours and hours just trying to understand what's new with each of the domains that it's touching. And,
yeah,
and I think that the fact that people are thinking, yeah, there's always change. We know that in the last few years, technology is really fast, and we saw that with the mobile devices like a few years back. No, it's not the same thing. And people need to understand that it doesn't matter if you're a psychologist or an accountant or a marketing person. It doesn't matter. It's coming. So just know that you don't need to say, okay, I won't have jobs in like 2 years or something. But you need to be aware where the world is going through. And when I'm thinking about technology and companies, they cannot allow themselves to ignore that. The fact that everybody's running, it's not by chance. There is a
yeah,
reason.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what have you learned from adding AI capabilities to your product? Now
Um,
everybody wants to understand and how can they leverage your knowledge to
so
their own.
first of all, I think I learned that it's not 100%. So it's like I think it's very easy to build a demo, very easy to achieve some sort of level of results. They still will be amazing, but then when you integrating something in the product, you need to have it 100% or very close to 100. So to take it there, it takes the time, a lot of efforts, and you need to ensure that you stay at this level because the model changes, the data changes, the usage is changing, right? So every time past, you can discover new use cases for your own AI feature that you built, right? You can have a user that comes completely different use case you didn't thought about it. So when I speaking about this classification, I saw one of the users, they build so like we intended to have this classification like user reviews, sensitive of feedback, etc., etc. I saw the user that what they did, they had like this a customer success technical ticket, and the classification was about which model phone it was speaking about. And like, oh, I never thought about that. Oh, another one was like they played the riddle. Someone was writing the text, and then they expecting the model to classify about which team they teach the text, like football team, and the text was thinking. So I wasn't thinking about this use case, right? And obviously we didn't build it for this way.
Yeah.
But then it's like, oh, this is the use case. It's a valid use case. Let's see how our model behavior for that, right? How our prompt configuration is like suitable, not suitable, good, not bad. Like, and then we need to iterate and improve it. So it's like
Yeah.
endless work. Like, so once you release it, it's not that you are done and that's it. You release it, and then you need to iterate over it. You need to improve it with more and more use cases. Um, Security is a big thing. So because you don't know what exactly going on and you don't know how users are going to use it, so it's not like you control the input. Input is controlled by user. Then there's a huge change of different exploits, right? And you need to protect yourself from the day one, both from like usage amount of it, like right. So you're paying for the models, you're paying for the usage. So you need to protect yourself that users will not use it for their own benefit, like running different stuff, and also both from data leakage, sensitivity, not being offended, etc. You need to take care of it, right? So either to use built-in mechanism from AI providers like Azure, AWS, Google, or build it for yourself. Um, User feedback. it's very hard to collect from the users the feedback about what is working, what is not. So we have this in the chat, thumbs up, thumbs down, right?
Yeah.
Most of the people don't click. Most of the people don't give you this feedback. So you need to think, like we learned that we need to think how we integrate learnings from what user is doing. So, for example, if we're speaking about classification, then for us, the feedback about it's working or not, if the label that model gave to this input stays in the board and the user not change it, right? So you need to think about in the product like how you gather feedback
Yeah.
constantly, because based on the feedback, this is how you improve. This is how you know how it works or not. Otherwise, you're just blind.
Yeah.
Right?
And what you mentioned about the iterative way of working, that it's not like, yeah, it's like, I've done it, I published it, now it's in production, that's it. So usually when you're writing code, you debug it. Of course, sometimes you have mistakes and you fix it, and then you publish it to it's in production, and that's it. It needs to work, other than if something else change around it or something. But in this case, in AI, it's not working this way. It's always changing. You always need to be interested in understand what is the meaning, what's going on, and to monitor it and to
Yeah.
change according to that and to learn from it. And it's a very fruitful way for you as a company to understand what is the usage, what is needed, and maybe you would, as you mentioned, build something a bit differently because users need it differently or ask for something which is different.
Exactly.
And maybe you need different capabilities in your team in order to do so.
So yeah, I think one of the things I've learned is like there is a strong benefit of having someone like data science that can bring different approaches. So like from one side, yeah, it's AI become very accessible by everyone, right? So I'm a software developer. I don't have anything knowledge about how these transformers are working, right? How this architecture, but I can deploy the model, I can use it everywhere, and I consume it through API. But there's still a lot of places of how you build it. For example, how you build the evaluation framework, right? So how you know that your model is doing what is your aim it to do, right? And then you need someone actually to can understand all the statistics, all the math behind it, right? So I know the math from the computer science degree, but not that I'm good at that.
Yeah,
And it's not my daily job, right?
right.
I can learn it, but there's a certain degree of how far I can achieve. And so having someone in team that can look on this from the point of data and say, oh, I know how to evaluate it, I know how to look on it, I know where to dig. It's bringing you a lot of, first of all, a lot of different directions, different perspective, and it's ignite all the conversation to go different, right? It's always good to have in room people with different opinions because only good things will going to happen out of that.
Yeah. So you
Uh,
mentioned data science. Other than that, did you train your developers in a different way of working, collaborating differently, understanding KPIs differently?
I don't think we like in the way we moved. We did some sort of like kickoff, like having this bootcamp, educating everyone out. What is AI? What is LLM? What is capable of? What is not capable of? Right. So, for example, LLM are not really good in math, but they're really good into writing good code that can solve a math problem. Right. All these approaches like multimodality approach, etc. So basically, we have this education, and it's like we change our onboarding so that not only like they're onboarded on our infrastructure, our code, our monolith, how we write code style, etc., but they're also onboarded on what is AI, what is it doing, how to use it, how it is capable, what we have in Monday, where we reach it, etc., etc. So definitely we changed our onboarding. We definitely, and when we look on the, by the way, when we're looking on the data science, so there's a classic data science, right? Someone that is sitting for several months experimenting and then like, oh, this is the result, take it and do whatever they want. And we clearly don't want it. So we wanted that even data science, that their work is not necessarily close to production, will be part of the production, part of this building the feature, releasing to the user, understand what's happening with it, and then to iterate over that. and that the data science will be part of it. So by the way, we call it not data, so we call it full stack data science. So he
Full stack
owned the
data
full,
science. This is how you call
yeah,
it. Okay.
he owned the whole cycle of experimenting, like building, experimenting, deploying, evaluating, seeing what's happening in the production, and then iterate over again. Right? We have in our team we have Ido, which was the first data scientist to join our team, and he's amazing. Like in doing this, like so our approach. Initially, we were hiring someone with this vision that not afraid to go from the Python world to the JavaScript world, the TypeScript world, and do things right, or at least read the code. And we were surprised how far we actually can go with this approach of having data science, which is like full stack data science, that he's living in production as well. Is same as all other developers, right? You can look on the what's happening there, you can understand, you can play with it, and actually keep part of this production. And we see if things not working, he understands that. Not it's like he's disconnected. Um, but also, a product and design. Like our teams in Monday in general, and they are like we call it builders. It's dev, product, design. So we all working together as one team. So designers and products as well, they need to be educated first of all what's it capable of,
Yeah.
what does it mean, especially by the way for design, right? So you need to understand how you build all this mechanism of trust, of transparency inside the flow. So they become the integral part of the flow was happening inside the product, right? It will speak the same language. I mean, design language, right? It will not be some separate
Yeah.
animal
Fast.
inside the product that nobody can understand why it's there.
Yeah.
It's very intentional. So, like also for designers, although they're not tech person, it's crucial to understand what is that, how is it playing, and what's the rules.
Yeah, and more than that, if I understand is I understand the design world because I come from there, and they need to be aware about the user feedback and their questions much further than usually. Usually they have these feedbacks and they get like some kind of a degree of how users see that. But now they need to really be within the data because they need to get the feedback. So they
Yeah,
need to work with the data science together all the time in order to understand
yeah.
that.
I think it's even increasing the amount of things that they need to process, right? So like there is a regular flow of using of your product, right? So you look on the metrics, analytics, but then you say, okay, so I want to interview my users, right? And here's the tricky part: the user actually, when he's speaking with and give you a feedback of the product, they don't distinguish between design, the user experience, right, and actually AI.
Of course,
So
for them it's
the
the same. They
designer,
don't care who created
yeah.
that.
So the designer need to understand like how to distinguish between two words. Like this is one the model. Okay, so this is very techy, but this is actually about the user experience of how to use this model, right? And then you need to understand the essence of the feedback as well, and to dig it from the user.
Yeah,
It's like become
and
crucial.
learn what could be actionable in the future, of
Exactly.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it seems that the integration of development, product, and design needs to be built a bit differently. This is why I asked about the KPIs, because I think that you need to structure the way that you understand the data and you work with the data and implement change based on the data a bit differently than usual. Because
Right.
usually, you have these tools and it's kind of easy, I think, to understand the users and to give them what they, if you want, what they need.
Exactly.
Um, so could you give us a good, like real-time, a real-world example of successful AI integration? What would you select?
So what, like in the world or in the Monday?
Yeah, something that you know that you say, okay, they've done a good job.
Um, it's actually a good question. um, Actually, I want to like maybe I'm biased, but I think in Monday.com we did a really great job with this automation. It's kind of like so even like having this open, like we call it open block, right? So it's like automation that you can write the prompt and then it will run every time based on the trigger that you choose. The thing is that it's open endless amount of possibilities that we. So we give it for our partners. So we in Monday.com, we have a lot of partners. They're usually very tech-oriented persons, or our customers, technical customer support that build some sort of like solutions for the customer. And amount of things that they build, it's crazy. Like they build flows. So before that, to release automation, like you need to package it. It's a certain behavior to write the code, and then like it's very limited in certain types of columns. But suddenly with this open block, it's become enabled. Like I'm time to time, I see videos that they're sending, let's say partners or technical customer support. They're sending the videos of the implementations that they build with this open block automation, and I'm blowing my mind. Like, oh, I say, oh, it's like completely different world of how you build the product,
Yeah.
and I think it's really good. Um, I was playing with Microsoft Office. I think they did also a good job, especially with Excel, because nobody really remember this Excel formula and how to write them. So I really like it. And I think it's like they build it well. I still think that with all this chat capabilities, it's kind of like it's very, for me, I'm really become very tired. And then, by the way, another product, amazing product that I really like, that it gets GitHub Copilot. It's a, it's it was like amazing to see how within the night when they released it to the public, every developer dream to have that. And once you have it, I call it, don't take it from me. So like it's a test. If I will come to you and say, okay, I'm taking this feature from you, how much you will hold? No, don't take it from me. So like today, every developer then once get their hands on the GitHub Copilot, they will not give up. Like they can't develop without it, right? So it's
Wow.
yeah. And by the way, they did an amazing job, right? So it's like it's built within what you're doing right now. So you're developing, you're writing the code in your IDE, and then it's just it's in intrusive way provide you completion, and you can continue to write like nothing is changed, or you can click the button and then it will fill this completion that it suggests, and it's suggests really good things, like really quality wise good suggestions. Like I'm literally developing only with that, and my speed of development become like 3-4 times faster.
Yeah.
So yeah, amazing product.
Okay. So another small question related to that. Do you think that we'll need less or more developers in the future with Copilot?
I think so. When you're looking, for example, industrial revolution, right? So what's happened is that the labor world, that main labor world, were switched to factories, right? And then instead of having 1,000 people doing something, you have 100.
Right.
But on the other side, it creates so many new jobs, right? And it's took humanity much forward. Now, I truly believe that what's happening right now is the same thing. From one side, yes, maybe you will need less developers, but from other side, it will create so many new job opportunities. Like even today, you have prompt engineering, software engineer, like someone that this job was never exist before, right?
Right.
Or MLOps, machine learning,
Right.
dedicated DevOps, like wasn't existing before. So I think like yes, developers become much more powerful. They will do things faster. They will need less to code things, more to think infrastructure, design wise, etc., etc. And so as a result, you will need to have less developers. But on the other side, you will need to have much more people on different jobs that will create it as a result of working with AI, right? So like more maybe data science, more something that can build evaluation frameworks. So more like tech design persons, etc., etc. So yeah,
Yeah.
back to our change thing that change is happening in front of our eyes.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you're optimistic and you see it like in a good way. So you mentioned that.
Yeah, I'm very excited about what's happening right now. I'm waking up every morning and I say, wow, and like what amazing world we're living in right now.
Right. Right. So we're almost done. I have my last question. Your number one tip for AI entrepreneurs today.
Number one thing, tip. I would say like build it as fast as you can and ship it. And like it doesn't matter, just ship it. You will learn much more and then iterate it over it. Like
Yeah.
it's the same with every startup, but here it's much easier to ship something to the production. And they say like don't afraid. Like I see many entrepreneurs. Oh, we need to build it in like 100% right. I don't think so. You need to ship something that provide value for small amount of users, but then like replicate it, learn, and you will be amazed how fast all the things are developing. Like also, like the technology is evolving so fast. So by the time you build, it will be something new that allow you to improve what you already built, or to build it in a different way that will improve the way you serve your users. So just go, just build, like move forward, move fast.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, Yoni. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I really enjoyed talking to you. Maybe we should do another session. It's been lots of fun. And I always learn from you, so thanks. Where
Thank
could
you.
people hear more about your work and contact you?
So I think LinkedIn is the best place. Just write, hi, I watched your podcast and I do this and that. Let's keep in touch. I think this is the best way of reaching out.
Wow. So thank you, Yoni, for your time. It's been a pleasure. So we should do it again. And I hope we'll meet again, like in one of the Google conferences for sure.
Me too. Me too.
And to all of you change makers out there, thank you for joining us. And if you found this episode valuable and insightful, please share it. And I'll see you next week with another innovative, insightful talk. See ya.